Hello, I know it's been a little while since my last video. I just want to, before I dive into today's topic, I just want to say that obviously the situation in Ukraine is still ongoing. It's certainly gone on longer than Russia thought it would. And I continue to commend the Ukrainian people for their determined and resolved defense of their country. I'm sure I will probably end up making more videos on that situation as it continues, but at the moment, it is still an ongoing humanitarian crisis, and I certainly hope that the Ukrainian people prevail. With that said, I want to get into today's topic, which is Boris Johnson the problem? As you will no doubt notice, I have the headline here from today's Sunday Express. Uh, I am the leader that Britain needs. Likewise, there's some people saying he should go sooner rather than later. Oh no, the Chancellor's in trouble again. We build a bit of a picture here, don't we, as to the kind of country we're living in right now, where for days, if not weeks, people have been honing in on Boris Johnson and the outcome of Partygate, which, of course, was the illegal parties that he and people within his office were found to have conducted and have been fined over. So, of course, he said famously back in December that no, there was no such parties took place. And then the story changed to, well, they might have taken place, but I wasn't there. And then from that to, I was there, but I didn't think it was a party. He has since been fined, as have other people. And so we're at this weird constitutional crisis right now where he's legally been found wrongdoing and has been fined by the Metropolitan Police, but he has also breached ministerial code by lying to Parliament about it. Now, the interesting thing with the ministerial code, of course, is that the ministerial code isn't guided by judges or by the police. It's governed by ministers, by Parliament. So ultimately, it's the government that determines whether or not somebody has breached ministerial code and what kind of punitive action that evokes. And this can go all the way up to the head of government, the Prime Minister. So there is a very real possibility of Boris Johnson has to determine whether or not Boris Johnson broke the ministerial code, and therefore, as Prime Minister, Boris Johnson gets to decide whether or not Boris Johnson is forced to resign from that role. Do you see the conflict of interest here? And the fact that we've got people within his own party concerned that speaking out against him will lose their positions. I particularly like this one from the Daily Star a few days ago with the photoshopping his face on Worf and the idea of, he went through all of these lies just to desperately stay in power. And of course, the fact that his own party are being told to block internal inquiries. Why is this relevant? Well, there is now a Labour push forward a motion on Friday, which did actually pass through the House, to get Boris Johnson and members of his cabinet further investigated about whether or not they lied to the British public and to Parliament about this. But still, people within his own party are defending him. I mean, this interview came, I think, from today.
On Friday. And at what point does it tip over and become impossible for the Prime Minister to stay on?
Well, first of all, I just have to reiterate the point that it's not going to be helpful for me as a cabinet minister. I don't think your viewers would expect me to be engaging in hypotheticals about what may or may not happen. But also, I listened very carefully.
You're a cabinet minister where the head of your government has been found and formally fined for breach of laws that Boris Johnson created about social distancing, about gathering during the height of the COVID pandemic. He broke those rules that he wrote, and you think it's not appropriate for you to comment on it? Yeah, no, I don't buy that, and I don't think anybody watching this should.
To what the Prime Minister said, both after the fines were issued and to the House of Commons earlier this week. And I think he gave a very clear explanation, and I understand how people feel really hurt and angry about this. And I think the Prime Minister acknowledged that properly in what he said and gave a full and unreserved apology. But I also think you do need to balance against that. First of all, the really good things that he has done as Prime Minister, whether that's delivering the vaccine programme.
What? The good things he's done. Okay, he's going to list them. The vaccine program. Okay, so a government did the bare minimum that was expected during a global pandemic, which was to ensure that vaccines were delivered to as many people within their country as possible, as quickly as possible. That's the bare minimum I would expect government to do. That's not. Let's see what else he lists.
Getting Brexit done or the actions in Ukraine, but also the challenges we face right now, whether that's national security.
Right. The Ukraine thing's easy. We're not actually in Ukraine. We're not doing anything in Ukraine. That is entirely on the Ukrainian people. Now, obviously, we are continuing to supply resources to the Ukrainian people to help them defend their country, whilst also applying economic sanctions on Russia. But again, the idea that that is something unique that only Boris Johnson and the Conservatives could do is laughable. And Brexit, look, getting Brexit done is like somehow the magic bullet that seems to resolve every problem this government comes up again. But there is no tangible evidence to prove that anything that they said would happen as a result of Brexit, any of the positives, have actually come to fruition. In fact, it's been proven that time and time again, the economic forecasts that said that Brexit would make this country poorer have been correct. So, again, that's not the victory you think it is. If anything, that only further cements Boris Johnson's ineptitude.
Or whether that's energy security, these are unparalleled challenges. And I actually think that instability and uncertainty caused by a change of leadership would not be in the national interest.
Instability caused by change of leadership would not be in the national interest at this time. We've replaced prime ministers in wartime before, so the idea that there is some sort of monumental struggle that we can't overcome at the moment is a joke. This is the problem, is that even now that he has been investigated by the Metropolitan Police and fined, and so has the Chancellor, they're still defending Boris Johnson, and they're going to keep defending him. And if and when public pressure against Boris Johnson reaches the point that it becomes untenable for him to stay in leadership, the Conservatives think that they're just going to replace him, that replacing Boris Johnson will fix it. Well, the problem is they've gone along with, supported, and enabled Boris Johnson. I asked the question at the start of this video, is Boris Johnson the problem? No. He's not. He is a problem, but the problem is that the entire Conservative Party is playing defense on themselves, is putting their own personal agenda, their own personal career progression ahead of the duties that they are required to fulfill as public servants. We shouldn't be waiting till 2024. We should, if the Conservatives are confident in their ability to convince the British public, they should call a snap election and see what happens. But they won't. I don't know what powers the people have to force the issue of a general election. But we need to continue to keep this issue in the limelight. The idea that Partygate can just be swept under the rug and, oh yes, but Boris Johnson's doing the best he can. No, that's not good enough. We're in an economic crisis. There's talk of another recession looming in the not too distant future. We have insane price increases at the moment, and global political instability thanks to a country who, up until recently, we were very happy to take money from. Remember, there is still the son of a Russian oligarch is still a member of House of Lords, and that was something that, again, Boris Johnson, he appointed that person, and the press tried to follow up on that, and again, this was a story that they've tried to bury. There's no ands, ifs, or buts. The Conservative Party, irrespective of whether or not you believe in traditional conservative values, the Conservative Party right now are in it for themselves. They are the problem. They are the rot at the centre of our government. After over a decade in power, they've become complacent. They are knowingly lying, dishonest, disingenuous people, and they think that you, the British public, don't notice. It's really important. It's really important that we hold our public figures, especially those who are elected public servants, to account. This story should not ever go away. It needs to be thoroughly and robustly investigated, and we need to make it clear that this sort of thing isn't what we, the British people, stand for. It isn't what we want. We don't want politicians who lie, bully their way into office, and then continue to lie and bully members of their own party into covering their ass for them. I'll leave you guys to think that one through, but until next time, just keep an eye on what the press is saying, and keep an eye on what the politicians are saying, and ask yourself, who really stands to gain?